In this lesson, I'm going to talk about the concept of Java generics. Now, before I get into the specifics of what Java generics is, it's important to understand the concept of array. I've done this in previous tutorials, but I'm going to recap here a little bit so that we understand the Java generics better. So an array is, once again, a container object that holds a fixed number of values of a single type. And for example, the length of the array is established when the array is created, and after you create the array, the length is fixed. And we've been using arrays in previous lessons as well. But first, I'm going to quickly demonstrate a simple example of an array, and then I'll demonstrate how does it relate to Java generics and what that is, and how does it work, how is it beneficial for programmers. So let's jump right in. Let me go ahead and open the Java Eclipse editor. Once we're in the Eclipse editor, I'm going to go ahead and create a new class. So simply right click on Java Introduction, choose New, and then click on Class. I'm going to call this Test Array 12. Could be any name. Just click Finish, and this creates the public class test array. So let's go ahead and build our first array so you actually get to see what that looks like. So public static void and then main. I'm going to go ahead and use string, and then of course our command line argument with a set of brackets, and then open our curly braces. Now notice we also use an empty string here in the main method, okay? But next I'm going to create, in fact, and declare our array. So let's go ahead and let me do this. So let's go ahead and do int, for example, a, and this array is going to have new int, and it's going to contain, let's say, 5 things, right? So I'm going to place number 5 and then close the brackets with a semicolon. And what is essentially happening here is, let me go ahead and place a comment. So we're simply declaring, right? So declaration and instantiation. So that's what's happening here. Next, obviously, since I've specified 5 elements within this array, I'm going to go ahead and start my elements. So it'll be A, and of course within an array the element always starts with a 0. So for example, have a word that says hello, then the first letter of the word hello, which is H, is represented by a 0. Okay, so keep that in mind whenever you work with arrays. So we always start with 0 as being the first letter, and then I'm going to go ahead and equal this to, let's say, could be any number. I'm going to go ahead and say 10, and this is where we're actually initializing the array. And next I'm going to go ahead and do, of course, the 1, and we've done this before, so this may be a recap, but it's good to know before we get into the Java generics. And of course my third would be, let's say, 70, and let me go ahead and create, because we need 5, right? So this would be something like, let's say, 40, and we need 1 more, and this would be something like, let's say, 50. Perfect. So once we have the array and we've specified what goes in the array, next let me go ahead and do the printing of the array. I could just do a sysout, simple, or I can do a for loop within this array, so it runs over and iterates over each of the elements within the array, so it prints out all the numbers. So a simple for loop would be for int I equals 0, semicolon, and I can specify something like if I is less than a dot length, and then increment I. So here all I'm doing is specifying the length, which is the property of the array. So let me go ahead and even place a comment here. So here the length is the property of array. And then of course we do our system.out.print, and then what am I printing? I'm printing A, and then of course our I. Great. So a simple array. Just wanted to reiterate the basic concept of what an array is. It holds a set of values, and you can define the property. And once we run it, by clicking on the Run button here, Save and Launch dialog box appears. Click OK, and you'll notice it'll print out the numbers 10, 20, 70, 40, and 50. So just wanted to run through this quick example of an array. Once we have created this array called testarray12, next I'm going to go ahead and talk about what Java generics really is and how does it work. So if you think about it, it would be nice if we could write a single sort method that could sort all the elements in an array. So for example, if you have an integer array, just like we did this example, a string array, or an array of any other type that supports ordering. So Java generic methods and classes basically enable programmers to specify with a single method declaration a set of related methods, or with a single class declaration and a set of related types respectively. Hope that makes sense. So think of generics that they also provide programmers the compile time safety that allows them to catch invalid types at compile time. So with this concept, this generic concept, we might write a generic method for sorting an array of objects, and then invoke the generic method with integer arrays, double arrays, or string arrays, and so on. And this is to sort the array elements. So this is the basic definition and concept of what a Java generic is and how does it help programmers to specify with a single method declaration a set of related methods. We can also use the generic class declarations, but at this point I'm going to stick to the basic concept. So once you have this down, we'll get into that later. So right now I'm just going to demonstrate a couple of examples of how we can use Java generics. So here I'm going to demonstrate how we can use the Java generic method to print out a single array in different ways. So let's go ahead and let me go ahead and create a new class. So let's choose our Java introduction folder, right click, new, and then click on class. I'm going to go ahead and give it a name. So I'm going to call it generic method test5, just any name. Let's click finish, and this creates the public class called the generic method 5. Next, I'm going to go ahead and in fact give it a comment here first. So this is going to be our generic method of our, let's say, print array. So just showing you different ways we can use this method and tell Java to print these arrays in different ways. So once the comment is out of the way, let me go ahead and do public static, and here I'm going to use, let's say, the E element, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and use the letter E, and then use our void print array and tell Java the E array, and then also use the input. Perfect. Let's open our curly braces. Let me go ahead and fix this curly braces. We should open this instead of close this curly braces. The public static and void properties. Next, I'm going to go ahead and display the array elements. Okay, so let's go ahead and type a comment here, display array elements, and then simply do a for the E element. I'm going to go ahead and use the input array, then open our curly braces and do a sysout, which is system.out.println. And what am I printing? I'm going to go ahead and print, let's say, modulus s, comma, and then the element. I'm also going to go ahead and do a system.out.print, remain null or blank, and then close our curly braces. Next, I'm going to go ahead and do the public static void main, and then of course our string, arguments, open our curly braces. So here I'm going to go ahead and basically create the arrays of integer, double, and character. So 3 different types of arrays, and then we'll take a look at how does that print using the Java generics. So let me place a comment here. So create arrays of, let's say, integer, double, and character. So let me go ahead and in fact create those. So it'll be integer as the first type of array, and I'm going to say int array, and this would equal the curly braces, and it's going to hold values 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Close the curly braces and place the semicolon. And next would be the double array, and this will be double array equals, and this array is going to hold values such as 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and 1.5. So just some random values here. And then of course our third would be for the character. So it'll be character array. And of course this is going to contain some text. So I'm going to say, let's say H. And next would be, let's say the word E. I'm just going to write the word hello here. So next would be L, another L, and of course the letter O. Perfect. Now once I have those, let me create some spaces here. And next, of course, we do our prints, right? So system.out.println. And what are we printing? We're first going to print the array, integer array, contains some text, and of course, print array, int array, and then place a semicolon. This line of code simply is passing an integer array. Okay, so that's all we're doing here. So let me in fact place a comment. So pass an integer array. So same thing. So system.out.println, and this is going to be for the double array, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and do the n array, double array contains, and pass it again, right? So print array, and then of course the double array. And what's going on here is simply pass a double array. And one last thing left here is for the character. So let's do a quick system.out.println, and this is going to contain the n array, character array contains, and of course pass it again. So print array, and I think this is char for character array. Perfect. Let me in fact place a comment here also. So pass a character array. Great. So we're using Java generics to output different types of arrays by using, let me scroll up here so you can see, by using a simple generic method called print array. So this print array that we created using Java generics is going to be displayed out 3 different times once we pass the print array, whether we pass it to an array that is integer based, whether we pass it to an array that is double type, or an array that contains strings. So let's go ahead and fix this print in. And I'm going to go ahead and change this to printf, so Java recognizes this. And the reason why I used the printf, by the way, is because this is going to use the format specification, okay? And that's what printf does here. It takes all the elements in the array and formats them accordingly, okay? So we'll take a look at printf and println and different types of prints later on. I've demonstrated some in the previous lessons, and of course as we move along within this course you will learn different ways. So here the printf simply means format specifications. Perfect. So once we have this program, let's run this to see the output. So let's go ahead and click on the run. Save and launch dialog box appears. Click OK. And wonderful, we get the array character array which contains the word hello. So I hope this makes sense. Now, of course, we can do another example, and let me in fact show you. what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the same example and maybe simplify things a little better so you understand the concept of generic in Java. So let's say we have the public class called generic methods test 5, and then of course we do the print array, which is public static e void and then print array. And here, instead of input array, I'm just going to go ahead and use elements. So for each element now, so for e element here, I'm going to go ahead and change the input array to say elements. Same concept, just changing things so you see a different perspective on how to use Java generics. So once I change the elements, I'm going to go ahead and do the sysout for the element, which is fine. And of course, sysout print in. And then set our public static void with the command line argument and create the arrays, right? So here, for example, I have the integer array called int array, which contains a set of values. So I'm just going to change the values here. So 10, 20, 30, 40, and then 50. And I'm going to get rid of the double here. So maybe I don't need the double. Bring that up here. Perfect. So the character would contain the character array. I'm going to change the text also. So I'm going to say it's CL, A, and then Y. And of course, D. Maybe add some more. So go ahead and do the E, the S, and then the K. So we'll just call it Claydesk. So once I have this, let's do the system.out.println, and this is going to do the printing of the integer array, right? So let's go ahead and remove this, and let me go ahead and type printing integer array. And then of course pass the print array to the int array, and then instead of the double array, I'm going to remove this, and of course add the printing character array, which is our next thing. So printing character array, perfect. And of course pass the character array instead of the double, right? So just get rid of this and type character array. Okay, so a simplified version of using Java generics. So once I run this, for example, click OK, and then notice the array character array contains Claydesk. So this way we can use Java generics. So I hope this helps with the concept of what an array is, how to create elements in an array, different types of arrays, and then of course how it relates to the concept of using the Java generics, where you create one array and then you output it in different ways. So with this, let's move to the next lesson.